Chapter 1. Guest. Damn, you look like a leprechaun's wet dream.
Clarence's slight southern drawl emerged when he teased.
Are we so far behind you had to take up hooking?
Gesturing at my far-from-typical attire, my accomplice, employee, and friend took a seat beside me in the mezzanine lounge. The final movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony resonated from beyond the red double doors of the concert hall. Very funny. It's not the goal. It's the target. Glancing down at my plunging neckline, I realized the diamond necklace, a gift from my late husband, was the only thing I wore in good taste. My objective was simple: convince two wealthy businessmen their financial contributions were key to the orchestra's survival. After weeks of poring through hundreds of files and identifying the perfect prospects, I had selected esteemed guests for the night's reception. Clarence reached over and tugged on a wispy strand of my hair.
The green shirt really sets off your fiery mane.
The lady at the salon did her best to tone it down. I patted the locks pinned down in a loose bun. My brilliant copper-red hair was inspired by a documentary on South American tree frogs. Their vibrant cloaking cautioned predators to stay away. Fearing I had something in common with the frogs, I broadcast my own warning. Our secret? Venom. Waking next to a corpse on my honeymoon had been a pretty big omen. I could take a hint. Unfortunately, this job called for a different strategy. Attraction was essential. I slid a folder toward Clarence.
So, you've decided on our final victim, Ms. Senior Director of Fundraising?
He opened the front cover.
Huh, Martin Willoughby. That explains everything. Well, if anyone can loosen his pockets, it's you.
Clarence stroked his impeccably trimmed goatee, which accented a hard-to-forget smile. I glanced at the file and tapped a finger on the cover. I've tried to avoid him, but Willoughby is our best chance. We only have a few more weeks to make our goal. I looked down and adjusted my shirt. The outfit ensures I'll keep his attention long enough to make the ask, but it's not without risk. Do you remember what happened to Allison last year? I shifted on the slippery bar stool and tugged my short skirt, making sure it covered my ample bottom.
How could I forget? She moaned for days about how hard he pinched her ass.
Clarence laughed, and the lights hanging above the bar highlighted small wrinkles on his smooth, shaven head. I slapped another folder against the bar harder than I intended. Our second prospect is Stanton Overton. He's bringing a guest.
Is Overton the one who wore the black pinstripe James Bond suit to the gala?
I nodded. I didn't get a good feel for his giving potential because he kept refocusing the conversation on me.
Linden, the man is so fine he can keep his money. I'll take his phone number.
Clarence cracked his knuckles as he let out a sigh, but I noticed the blush in his coffee-colored cheeks. I needed to keep him on task. I'm depending on you. I'll get things wrapped up with Willoughby as fast as possible so I can see if Overton's guest has potential.
Don't worry. I'll make sure it's all business.
He winked. I shot back a suspicious half-smile and leaned across the bar, stowing the folders out of sight. The bustle of patrons exiting the concert hall filled the corridors. A few musicians arrived and assembled a string quartet in the corner of the lounge, adding to the ambiance of the evening's event. I waved to them and mouthed, "Thank you," from across the room. From behind, a large hand snaked around my waist, causing me to slide off the bar stool. I stumbled. Martin Willoughby steadied me, and then pulled me hard against his chest. He kissed me first on one cheek and then the other, while his eyes lingered on my cleavage between kisses.
Ms. Hill?
I stared at him for a moment, trying to regain my wits. So nice to see you again, Mr. Willoughby. Did you enjoy the performance?
Yes.
He pulled back and let his gaze roam the length of my body.
You look delectable.
I blushed, tilted my head, and flashed a seductive smile. Thank you. Can I get you a drink? Scotch, double malt, if I remember correctly. He beamed.
My dear, you certainly have a good memory.
I smiled, hiding the truth, the subtle nuances my research had revealed about this man. One moment. I steadied myself in my 3-inch heels. When I turned to flag the bartender, Willoughby cupped my left butt cheek and squeezed. Even though I knew to expect it, the pinching took me by surprise. I stiffened. He probably did, too. Nothing quite like Viagra bravado. He brushed a hand through his graying hair and gave a toothy grin. I reminded myself how much the orchestra needed the money. Masking a grimace behind a coy smile, I mouthed, "Oh, my." He may have been attractive in his day, but the liver spots and deep-etched lines on his face confirmed years of hard living. I nudged Clarence, who still stood at the bar waiting for Overton, and motioned for the bartender. Clarence grinned, then leaned in, whispering,
How's your ass?
"Screw you." He snickered, leaned forward on his elbows, and took a drink. I elbowed him in the side. 2 scotches, double malt. To hell with the girly drinks. I needed the good stuff. Schubert's String Quartet No. 14, Death and the Maiden, played as I accepted Willoughby's outstretched arm, and he guided us to a quieter spot in the room. When I offered him the scotch, he snaked his arm around my waist.
So, where were we, Linden?
The performance. I didn't give him time to interject. Next year, if I can raise all the necessary funds, your seats will have improved acoustics. We're also adding a few private boxes for our patrons who like discretion. I shouldn't have, but I threw him a tempting smile. Segueing into the pitch early was risky, but if I didn't get started, he might need to be surgically removed. Overton would be arriving at any moment. Time was not a luxury if I wanted any chance of hitting up his guest for a donation, too.
Is that so?
He pulled me into a tight hug.
And what would be required to get on the list for one of those boxes?
I stood several inches taller than Willoughby, and his embrace positioned his face far too close to my not-so-well-contained cleavage. I held my glass in front of me, putting distance between us. If you are able to make a sizable donation this season, I'll make sure you are first in line. He leaned in, his breath smelling of Scotch cigar smoke and bad teeth.
Oh, sweetheart, you can put me second in line behind you. And I'll show you how sizable my donation can be.
I grimaced, willing my stomach not to heave as I struggled to laugh at his disgusting joke. Before preparing a forced flirty comeback, I glanced toward the door and saw Overton in his... Oh, God. Electricity ignited my skin as the stranger entered the room. The hairs on my arms tingled. My heart halted beating. Words stuck in my throat and mind. My chest tightened. All motion slowed, as if the world were suspended in liquid. Overton's guest removed a pair of dark glasses, tucked them into the inside pocket of his jacket, and stared directly at me. From the corner of the room, the music crescendoed, and his penetrating gaze caused the glass to slip from my hand. The caramel-colored liquid made large wet splotches all over Martin Willoughby's dress pants. Motionless, I returned the man's scrutiny. It was him. Impossible. 10 years ago, I held Overton's guest as he bled out onto the snow. He died. This could not be real.
Damn it!
Willoughby's exclamation and step backward pulled me from my stupor. Oh, I am so sorry. Let me get that. Long, clumsy strides took me to the bar for a stack of napkins, then back. I dropped to my knees and wiped at the amber liquid, anything to break eye contact. My hands shook, making the task difficult. I mumbled apologies to Willoughby and looked up to see him staring down at me. The mischievous grin told me he could see down my shirt. From my knees, I ventured a guess at the fantasy running through his head. I rose to my feet, careful not to look anywhere but at Willoughby. "I'm so sorry. Please, let me pay for your dry cleaning." Sincerity proved difficult when my mind couldn't care less about the smelly man or his pants, given the new development.
Nonsense. It's just a little scotch. It'll come out in the wash. Besides, the image of you on your knees was payment enough.
He winked. I faked a giggle and hid my trembling hands. A familiar heat coursed through my body, disturbing and undeniable. I needed a moment to gather myself. I should probably go freshen up. I got scotch on me, too. Willoughby grabbed my arm and looked into my eyes with surprising and welcome concern. I don't know what he found. Fear? Exhaustion? Confusion?
What's wrong, Linden?
"I feel bad about your pants." I lied. "I didn't ask you here to ruin your night."
I know.
He reached out and brushed one of the strands of hair from my face. As he did, I glanced up to verify the man who accompanied Overton remained in the room. He had not wavered. Willoughby seemed to pick up on my emotions.
Miss Hill, we both know what these gatherings are about. As much as we love the pretense, let me make this a little easier. How much do you need?
I hoped he had a tight grip on his drink when he learned the amount. I gave him a weary smile. 50,000. He raised an eyebrow.
I'll be first on the list for one of those boxes?
Yes. He paused and stared into my eyes. His gaze then drifted to my cleavage. He sighed.
Done. I'll have my assistant send over the check in the morning.
Thank you so much. I extended my gratitude not only for the money, but also for the distraction. Really, thank you.
As always, Miss Hill. It was my pleasure. My wife is waiting for me in the car. Call me when the box assignments are made.
Certainly. Thank you again. He threw his arms around me and pulled me into a fierce hug, which landed his nose between my breasts. After one last squeeze of my bottom, he turned to leave. Who would have thought I would be sorry to see Martin Willoughby go? Overton stood at the bar conversing with Clarence, his guest no longer in the doorway. Exhaling a sigh of relief, hoping I imagined everything, I heard his voice come from behind me. Different accent, same tones. Light tremors racked my body as he drew near. Even though I could not see him, the pulsing under my skin alerted me to his proximity. His scent, unmistakable.
Excuse me, Mrs. Green?
The words slid like velvet from his tongue as he approached. By some miracle, I managed to respond. Yes? My back to him, eyes closed. Michael, my late husband, convinced me I had concocted the man's entire existence. I had always secretly hoped he was wrong, hating to think someone imaginary had affected me so deeply, that I was still in love with a dream. Wait, he called me by my married name. No one knew I was a widow.
I'd like to introduce myself.
His words were almost a whisper, and so close his hot breath tickled my ear. I turned to face him, trembling. Our eyes met, and the intensity nearly buckled my knees. He extended his hand.
Morgan Peters.
Same blue eyes. Deep breath. In slow motion, I slipped my hand into his. Electric. Just as I remembered. A low voltage ran through my body. His touch simmered my blood, and I worried my bones might turn to liquid. He was the nexus. My stare drifted to his hand, large and masculine, tightening around mine, then looked up into his wide, surprised eyes. My tongue felt thick and dry from anxiety. Beads of perspiration peppered my skin. I swallowed hard and exhaled. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Peters.